husband and wife duo found themselves exploring new hobbies as they prepared for retirement. This led them each to publish their first books. And here to share more about why you should practice for retirement and talk about their journeys are authors Mary Jo and Steve Hoffman. Mary Jo, Steve, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having us. This is a thrill.
Yes, I'm so intrigued by this concept of practicing for retirement. So explain to me what that is and then how you guys prepared for that.
You want me to take that?
Take it away.
All right. 12 years ago, we took a sabbatical. Steve's work is seasonal. He's a tax preparer. And we wanted to put our kids in school in France. And we wanted to go to southern France because we're Minnesotans and we just wanted to get us warm. So we put our kids in school for a semester and had free time for the first time in our lives. And said, what are we going to do with this free time? You know, we still had to do parent pickup and parent drop off, so we couldn't go have lunch on the on the Mediterranean. So we decided we'd use that time to practice retirement. I'd read about it in some financial planning book that this was a good thing to do. We were in our mid-40s, and
what does that mean exactly, practicing?
Well, you can't walk out the door when you're 62 or 65 and expect. You need to prepare. You have to have your hobbies in place, your community in place, your mentoring, or whatever you want to do when you walk out. Get that all in place before you arrive at retirement. Otherwise, that transition is going to be really challenging.
This also came a little bit from my work as a tax preparer because I'd seen a lot of people. I do 400 or 500 tax returns a year. I'd watch a lot of my clients reach retirement and really not know what they were going to do with themselves.
Right.
I think they saw it as the promised land. They were going to walk away from all that they didn't like about their previous life. Then suddenly they arrive at retirement and kind of look around and say, was this what this was all about?
Right.
And so we tried to get really deliberate during that trip. And also call back to some early loves of ours. I was yes, I'm a tax preparer, but I was also a language and literature major in college. So I went back to writing and journaling. And Mary Jo had always loved photography, again, earlier in her life before the busy middle years of parenting hit us. And so she took that back up. And, they say every overnight success takes about 10 years to get there. And it took us just about 10 years to both be publishing our books.
Yeah. So tell me about that process and what you guys really did diving in to practice your retirement. You guys looked back at some things that you enjoyed before you guys had kids, kind of in your earlier life, and you brought that back into play. I love this. And what did you do from there?
Well, I've been a hobbyist, an amateur photographer my whole life, but I worked corporate for 17 years. It just was on the margins. So when I had time, I picked it up, and I wanted to do one of these one-a-day projects as a way of sort of doing creative calisthenics, if you will. Just get limber again. Yeah, creatively. So I decided to photograph found nature, and every day, once a day, for a year, and share it on a blog. And I named the blog Still, and I started to do that. It got some attention, and 12 years later, I haven't stopped. And so my book is a commemoration, a culmination of 12 and a half years of one-a-day photos, which, if you do the math, is about 4,600 images.
Wow. And by never stop, literally not one single day. She has posted a book every day for 12 years.
A copy of the book cover was just up there. Your book is called Still. And so did you start with your pictures in the south of France? I mean, what a lovely
It was
place.
that year. I had started the blog on January 1st, 2012. We didn't go to France until August of that year. So yeah, I started a nature photo project in Minnesota in January. It was a funny choice, but I got through it, and then I got to France and had all sorts of new flora and fauna to choose from.
Amazing. Okay, Stephen, how did you use your time in France to kind of dive into your new hobbies?
Right. Part of our trying to integrate into this tiny village where we had moved involved. My initial thought was that I was going to cook my way into the village. Well, I wasn't much of a cook, as I found out quite quickly. My family wasn't very thrilled with what I was preparing them, and so I transitioned a little bit toward keeping extensive journals. So I would try to document what we'd done each day, and by the time we left, I had about 100,000 words of journals separated into these little scenes. I submitted a few of those to the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, our local newspaper. They ended up winning a couple of National Food Writing Awards, and suddenly a new career was born in some sense. But it was still focused very much on food. So I became a food writer as a result of this. And then with this idea that we were going to go to New York for an award ceremony, Mary Jo said, you better have a book proposal. And about 5 years in, it took me 10 years to write the book. About 5 years in, she was not so sure that she had given me the right advice. But 10 years later, I was, I'd spent that time really both writing a book and teaching myself to write a book at the same time, kind of preschool and graduate school simultaneously. And that was part of why it took so long. I'm also a perfectionist, and that's also why it took so long.
So you got your book launched. Tell me the title.
It's called A Season for That, Lost and Found in the Other Southern France. The other southern France meaning the Languedoc region, which is on the west side of the Rhone, not the glamorous Riviera and Provence, but a very rural, agricultural, grape-growing, wine-making village.
Well, you both have fascinating stories, and I just applaud you for what you've done. What advice would you have for anyone who is, thinking about retirement? We all want to get there at some point. So what advice would you have for people to kind of practice for retirement? What should they do?
I think I really recommend thinking in decades. You can really get good at almost anything in 10 years, and I think a lot of people think they're going to start their retirement when they hit 65. And then, if you don't already have those skills and you're not already expanding into Act 3 from things you love already, it becomes really hard. So I think forward. Imagine that if you love something right now, if you do it for 10 years, you're going to be good at it, and it will enrich that phase of your life.
Amazing. Mary Jo, quickly, where can we get a copy of yours and Steve's book?
Okay, my publisher is fine. My book's available worldwide. His is Penguin Random House, also, I think, available worldwide.
On Amazon, available worldwide, yes.
Real quick, my book is gone into second printing. It's sold out, and it's gone into second printing. Locally here, Book Passage in Corte Madera has books, and they'll ship. They're happy to ship. So there is a little shortage of my books until the second printing arrives, but there are books in the Bay Area, and Corte Madera. Book Passage is a great place.
Well, thank you both so much. I appreciate you being here.
This was amazing.
And congratulations on the book.
It's really fun.
Thank you so much.